Hello everyone, today I will continue sharing with you the story of CEO Alex and the single mother, Tuna. I hope you enjoy the video. A few days later, Alex decided to conduct a survey around the forest bordering the farm. For a long time, he had dreamed of expanding this place into a small eco-resort, one that could both preserve nature and create jobs for local villagers. Early in the morning, he shouldered his backpack, carrying a map and a few surveying tools. Tuna, worried, asked, "You're going alone? The forest has many dangerous places." Alex smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, I know the terrain well. Besides, I want to see with my own eyes what this land can become for our future." Then, he gently placed a kiss on her forehead before leaving. Tuna's eyes followed him until his figure slowly disappeared into the canopy of trees, filled with both trust and unease. Inside the forest, birdsong mixed with the trickling of a stream. Alex stopped by a gentle slope covered in lush green grass. He unfolded his map, carefully noting down potential spots for trails, small lodges, or playgrounds for children. In his mind, a vision took shape: Henry running joyfully through the forest, Tuna sitting and reading on the porch of a wooden cabin, while his mother and sister tended to the vegetable garden and the chickens at the farm. Lost in his notes, Alex suddenly heard a strange sound echoing from afar, the snap of a dry branch, followed by what seemed like footsteps. He looked up, straining his ears. The whole forest fell into an uncanny silence. A cold gust of wind passed through, making him shiver. Slowly, he stepped toward the source of the sound, his heartbeat quickening. A fleeting thought struck him: was it just a wild animal, or was something else waiting for him ahead? Meanwhile, as Alex ventured deep into the forest to study the terrain, Tuna rose early, carefully preparing breakfast for the family. Little Henry, still too young to speak, was left in the care of Alex's mother. She gladly held the baby in her arms, soothing him with familiar lullabies. "Don't worry about the baby. Just go to the market, I'll take care of him," she said gently. Tuna nodded, gave a few last reminders, then picked up her basket and left for the market. Inside were bundles of fresh vegetables, some fruits from the garden, and a few dried goods from neighbors who asked her to sell them. The village market bustled with morning chatter and laughter. Tuna laid out a small mat, neatly arranged her produce, and greeted customers with her gentle voice. Soon, a few familiar faces stopped by. Recognizing her as Alex's wife, they looked at her with curiosity, but also friendliness. A neighbor picking through vegetables asked, "So, you're the new bride in Alex's house? You look so kind. Try to stay with him for the long run." Tuna blushed, smiling softly. "All I wish for is a peaceful life." That simple sentence carried the weight of years of longing. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Alex paused before a strange sunken clearing. He crouched down to take notes, but his mind still lingered on the mysterious sound he had heard earlier. It felt as if someone was watching him. Two people, in two different places, yet each carrying their own hopes and worries, Tuna carefully earning small coins at the market to build a home, while Alex calculated every step in the forest to open a bigger future for their family. That noon, the once clear sky suddenly darkened. Heavy gray clouds rolled in, and the wind howled through the treetops. The rustling leaves seemed to signal an ominous warning. Alex looked up, frowning. "It's going to rain." Before he could find shelter, a torrential downpour crashed down, so heavy that the entire forest seemed swallowed by a curtain of white water. The soil quickly turned to sludge, and the trails became dangerously slippery. Every step required caution; one misstep could send him tumbling into the ravine. He shielded his map with one hand, stuffed it into his backpack, and followed a narrow path in search of a way out. Rainwater streamed down the slopes, mud clung to his trousers. Each step grew heavier, yet Alex pressed on, his thoughts fixed only on Tuna and little Henry waiting at home. Meanwhile, at the market, Tuna hurriedly packed up her vegetables. The downpour had thrown the entire place into chaos. Buyers and sellers scrambled to cover their goods. Umbrellas and tarps whipped violently in the wind. A kind neighbor rushed over to help her gather things. "Hurry home, dear. If this rain keeps up, the roads will flood. Tuna thanked her quickly, clutching her basket in one arm while covering her head with the other as she ran home. Anxiety gnawed at her. I wonder how Alex is in the forest. Did he manage to find shelter? The rain pounded harder and harder. Deep in the darkening woods, Alex slipped on a slick slope, barely saving himself by grabbing a tree trunk. His heart pounded, cold sweat mingling with the rain that streamed across his face. He whispered under his breath, "I have to get back. Tuna and Henry are waiting." The storm raged on, the ancient forest cloaked in gloom like dusk had fallen early. Alex struggled along the muddy track toward the parking area. When he finally reached his pickup truck, relief washed over him. He started the engine quickly, determined to leave before the rising waters trapped him. But mountain roads under rain were treacherous. The tires spun across the slick mud, sinking in places as if the earth itself was trying to swallow the vehicle. Alex gripped the steering wheel tight, focus razor sharp. Suddenly, a massive boulder tumbled down from the slope, blocking the road. He swerved hard. The tires lost traction, and the truck skidded violently before plunging into a ditch. The crash resounded, metal clashing, glass shattering. The vehicle tilted sharply to one side. Alex was thrown forward, his arm slamming into the steering wheel with searing pain. His mind reeled, ears ringing, breath short and ragged. The rain hammered mercilessly, mixing with blood that streaked down his forehead. He tried the door, but it jammed tight. His hoarse voice broke the stormy silence. "Help me." In that moment, visions of Tuna and Henry flashed vividly before his eyes. A fierce will to survive surged within him. Clenching his teeth, Alex forced his weight against the opposite door. With a groan, it gave way, and he stumbled out into the mud, soaked and battered. Back at home, Tuna had just returned from the market. Unease gnawed at her heart as she looked outside. The rain poured endlessly, and there was still no sign of Alex. A terrible premonition made her chest tighten, her heartbeat racing. The rain did not relent, each drop striking the ground like a whip. Alex pushed against the earth, struggling to rise, his whole body trembling. Blood from the wound on his forehead mixed with the rain, staining his shirt crimson. Every step he tried to take felt as heavy as dragging 1,000 pounds, yet only one thought burned in his mind: I must get back to Tuna. I must get back to Henry. The forest path had turned into a muddy stream, slippery and littered with jagged rocks and broken branches. He dragged himself forward, clinging to tree trunks to keep from collapsing. Each time his knees gave way, the smile of little Henry and the warm gaze of Tuna flashed through his mind. Those visions fueled him to rise once more. Thunder split the sky, lightning illuminating Alex's solitary figure against the stormy curtain of rain. His breath came in ragged gasps, his lungs felt ready to burst, and his vision blurred with blood and water, but he refused to stop. Reaching a steep slope, his feet slid out from under him. His body tumbled down, slamming into rocks. Pain tore through him, leaving him gasping, motionless for a few seconds. In that haze, a faint voice echoed in his head, Tuna's voice. "Alex, please, come back to us." Clenching his teeth, Alex dug his hands into the mud, forcing himself to crawl upward. Each drag left streaks of blood in the sludge, but his eyes burned with determination. The more the pain seared, the fiercer his will to live became. Through the curtain of rain, a faint light flickered in the distance, the glow of a small watch hut deep in the forest. Hope sparked. Alex staggered, collapsing and rising again, forcing himself toward that fragile beacon like a drowning man clutching his last lifeline. The dim yellow light became his sole reason to keep moving. Step by step, his body threatened to break apart, his breath ragged, his vision swimming. When he was only a few meters away, his strength gave out. His knees buckled, and he collapsed face first into the mud, drenched and bleeding. With the last of his willpower, he raised a trembling hand and knocked weakly against the wooden door. The sound was barely audible beneath the pounding rain. The door creaked open. A tall figure appeared, holding a flashlight. The stranger's eyes widened at the sight of Alex lying unconscious in the mud. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and lifted the broken man into his arms. "Hey! Can you hear me?" The man's urgent voice cut through the storm. Alex's eyelids fluttered. He managed only a few broken words. Home. Tuna. Henry. Then he passed out. Alarmed, the stranger dragged Alex inside the hut, laying him on a wooden cot. He rummaged for an old first aid kit, tending to the bleeding wound under the flickering glow of an oil lamp. Carefully, he cleaned the blood, bandaged the injury, and lit a fire to warm the freezing body. Outside, the storm still raged. But inside the small hut, Alex's fragile thread of life clung on. The stranger gazed at his pale face and muttered softly, "I don't know who you are, but fate brought you here. There must be a reason." In his delirium, Alex whispered Tuna and Henry's names over and over. The stranger grasped his hand firmly, determination flashing in his eyes. "Hold on, my friend. If you still want to see them again, you cannot give up." At the farm, the rain continued to pour relentlessly. Tuna paced back and forth, her eyes fixed on the gate, as if waiting for the familiar figure to return. Alex had been gone far longer than promised, and his phone could not be reached. No one knew exactly where he was in the forest. Alex's mother, cradling baby Henry in her arms, could not hide her worry either. "In this kind of storm, I wonder if the boy managed to find shelter." Tuna clenched her hands tightly, anxiety burning inside her like fire. Each rumble of thunder sent her heart sinking. Dark visions haunted her mind, slippery trails, fallen trees, flash floods. Suddenly, the sound of a motorbike cut through the rain. A man, drenched to the bone, rushed into the yard, gasping for breath. Tuna hurried out. Do you know anything about Alex?" The man quickly answered. "Someone in the forest called the commune office. They said they found an injured man who gave his name as Alex. He's been taken to a watch hut for first aid." For a moment, Tuna stood frozen, her mind blank. Then, without hesitation, she rushed back inside to grab a raincoat, calling out, "Mother! I have to go now. Alex is hurt." His mother urged her. "Let me call some villagers to go with you. It's too dangerous to go alone in this storm." Moments later, several men from the village were ready, carrying flashlights, a stretcher, and raincoats. Tuna pulled on her coat, tied her hat firmly, and thought of only one thing: she had to reach Alex. The rain still fell in heavy sheets, the forest path swallowed in darkness, but beams of flashlights pierced through, illuminating the path of hope. Tuna quickened her pace, her heart pounding wildly. "Alex, you must wait for me." The rescue party trudged through the muddy forest road, flashlights cutting through the slippery terrain. The sound of rainfall mingled with heavy breaths. Tuna, in the middle of the group, her raincoat splattered with mud, barely noticed. Her entire being was focused on following the man who had brought the news. At last, a dim glow of an oil lamp flickered in the distance, the watch hut hidden deep in the forest. Tuna's heart nearly burst from her chest. She dashed forward and pushed open the heavy wooden door. Inside, under the faint yellow light, Alex lay motionless on a wooden cot. His face was pale, his hair soaked, and the wound on his forehead had been hastily bandaged, blood still seeping through the cloth. Beside him sat the stranger, watching over him with tired but resolute eyes. "Alex!" Tuna's cry broke, trembling with desperation. She fell to her knees beside the bed, gripping his cold hand. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rain still dripping from her hair. "It's me. Henry and I are still waiting for you. You have to open your eyes, don't leave us." The stranger looked on, deeply moved, and said softly, "He crawled all the way here, clinging to life. His will is strong. But if he's not taken to a hospital soon, I fear he won't make it." Tuna nodded frantically, her voice choking. "Please, help us. Save him. I beg you." At that moment, Alex stirred faintly. His heavy eyelids fluttered open just a little. Through blurred vision, his gaze sought Tuna. His lips moved, whispering weakly. Tuna. I'm home. Tuna burst into sobs, clutching his hand tightly as if to pour her warmth and faith into him. Amid the pounding rain outside, that fleeting moment became the fragile thread pulling Alex back from the edge between life and death. The rain kept pounding on the roof of the wooden hut. After a quick first aid check, the stranger and the villagers agreed Alex had to be taken down the mountain that very night. If they delayed, the wound could become infected, his body might not hold out. They laid a bamboo stretcher on the ground, spread a nylon sheet over it, and gently placed Alex on top. Tuna clutched his hand, trembling, her eyes red but filled with fierce determination. I'm coming with you, you have to listen to me, you must survive. The stranger took the lead with a flashlight, and the group left the hut, plunging into the stormy night. The forest path was now a swampy maze. Streams had overflowed, mud clung heavy, and every step felt like a crushing weight on their shoulders. Labored breaths, the sound of boots squelching through mud, and the thunder's roar filled the air. Alex lay motionless on the stretcher, occasionally groaning, blood seeping through the bandage. Tuna leaned close, whispering into his ear. Please, hold on, you have to come back to us. Henry is waiting for you at home. A teardrop fell onto Alex's pale face. As if by miracle, his fingers twitched, curling weakly around hers. Tuna's breath hitched, her heart felt like it was shattering and mending all at once. Onward they trudged, until faint electric lights glimmered at the foot of the mountain. Dogs barked in the distance, signs of the village ahead. Hearing the news, more villagers rushed to help. Someone shouted, "Get a truck ready. Straight to the district hospital." The stretcher was loaded onto a pickup truck, covered with a tarp against the rain. Tuna climbed in beside Alex, clutching his hand as tears streamed endlessly down her cheeks. The engine roared to life, and the truck sped into the storm. On the pitch-black road, headlights pierced the rain, carving out a fragile path of hope. Inside, amidst the howling wind and growling engine, Tuna whispered once more, a prayer carried on her breath. "Alex, you must survive. Our future is still waiting ahead of us." The truck tore through the night, tires spraying water across the winding mountain roads. By the time they reached the district hospital, it was nearly midnight. The emergency doors swung open, nurses and doctors rushed out, and Alex's stretcher was wheeled inside. "Make way. Severe trauma, heavy blood loss." A doctor barked urgently. Tuna held onto his hand until the very last moment before being pulled into the hallway. The doors slammed shut, leaving behind only the sterile emptiness and the red light glowing above, signaling that the operation was underway. She stood frozen, her hands still trembling, her chest gripped tight with fear. Alex's mother, holding Henry, arrived moments later. She placed a hand on Tuna's shoulder, her voice shaking. "Be strong, child. Alex is tough, he will make it through." But Tuna couldn't stop her tears. Pressing her face against the cold door, she whispered as if to herself. "Please, don't leave me, don't leave Henry." Time crawled by unbearably. Footsteps of doctors, the clang of medical instruments echoed from within, each sound making the weight heavier. Henry babbled innocently in his grandmother's arms, unaware that his father was fighting for life just beyond the door. The hallway lights flickered, the clock ticked relentlessly. Every second felt like an eternity. Tuna slumped onto a bench, hands clasped tightly, eyes swollen with tears, lips moving in constant prayer. Then suddenly, the red light above the emergency room went dark. The door handle turned. A doctor stepped out, face drenched in sweat. Tuna and Alex's mother leapt to their feet, rushing toward him, their hearts seizing in the agonizing moment of truth. The doors of the emergency room swung open, and the doctor stepped out, pulling down his mask. His face was weary, but his eyes carried a glimmer of relief. "Family of the patient, Alex?" he asked. Tuna rushed forward, her voice trembling. "Yes, it's me." How is he, doctor?" The doctor exhaled deeply, then nodded. "He is past the critical stage. However, he lost a lot of blood and sustained serious injuries. He will need close monitoring over the next few days. Most importantly, his spirit is very strong, perhaps it was that willpower that kept him alive. Hearing those words, Tuna's legs went weak, tears spilling freely. She collapsed against Alex's mother's chest, sobbing. "Thank goodness, he's alive." Alex's mother held her tightly, her own eyes glistening with tears but her voice steady. "You see? I told you. He's strong. From now on, we must stand together and take care of him." Just then, baby Henry giggled in his grandmother's arms, waving his tiny hands in the air as if in celebration. The innocent sound of laughter broke through the heavy tension, replacing it with a fragile sense of joy. A nurse came out and invited the family to visit. Tuna's hands trembled as she stepped into the room, her heart pounding. On the pristine white bed, Alex lay pale but breathing more evenly. When she clasped his cold hand, his eyelids fluttered. For a brief moment, his tired eyes opened. Alex looked at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I'm home." Tuna broke down in tears, clutching his hand tightly, whispering as though making a vow. "Thank heaven. I'll never let you face anything alone again." Outside, the rain had eased. Dawn broke, and a ray of soft sunlight streamed through the window, falling across the hospital bed. For Tuna, it was not just the light of morning, it was the light of hope for a new future. In the quiet hospital room, only the steady beeping of the heart monitor could be heard. Alex opened his eyes again, his breath still heavy but his gaze clearer now. Tuna sat close by, eyes swollen from crying, her hand never leaving his. He tried to smile, his voice hoarse. "You know, back in the forest, when the truck crashed. I thought, that might be my last breath." Tuna choked up, squeezing his hand. "Don't say that, you came back. It's over now." Alex shook his head faintly, his eyes locking onto hers, his voice slow and deliberate. "I need to say it, because it's the truth. In that moment, I didn't think about the company, or money, or anything else. I only saw you and Henry. I saw your smile and our son's bright eyes. All I wished for was to be home, sharing a meal together." His voice broke, his eyes shimmering with tears. "I finally understand, everything I've been chasing all these years, nothing is more precious than this family." Tears welled up in Tuna's eyes as she bent down, pressing her cheek to his hand. "Henry and I will always be here, by your side. We'll build our home together. I promise, you'll never fight alone again." Alex closed his eyes, a single tear sliding down his temple. But this time it wasn't from pain, it was from the profound happiness of being alive, of being loved, and of holding the hand of the woman he trusted most. Outside the window, the morning sun shone brighter, casting its glow across their faces. For them, this day was not just a return to life, it was a new beginning, where love, tempered by fire and storm, became something unbreakable. The hospital room door creaked open. Alex's mother and sister entered, followed by little Henry in their arms. Seeing her son awake, Alex's mother's eyes welled with tears. She stepped to his bedside, gently laying her trembling hand on his shoulder. "My son. I was so afraid of losing you. But now that I see you alive, I want nothing more." Alex tried to smile, his voice still weak but warm. "Mother. I'm sorry for making you worry. But it was because I thought of you, my sister, Tuna, and Henry, that I managed to hold on until now." Hearing this, his sister broke down in tears, her voice choked. "You fool. How could you risk your life alone in a storm like that? If you hadn't made it back, how could I have comforted Tuna and the baby?" Alex reached out his frail hand to clasp hers. "It was thinking of all of you that didn't allow me to give up. I understand now, the most precious thing is not work, not reputation, but this family." The room fell into a silence heavy with emotion. As if sensing the moment, Henry babbled softly, waving his tiny hands in the air. Everyone laughed through their tears, unable to hide their feelings any longer. Tuna sat nearby, cradling the baby, then lifted her gaze to Alex, her voice steady and resolute. "From today onward, we will rebuild everything together. A home, a family, and a new future." Alex's mother nodded gently, her eyes filled with faith. The family gathered close around the hospital bed, hand in hand, bound together by an invisible thread. Outside, the rain had ceased completely, and golden sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating each of their faces. For Alex, that moment was proof he had been given a second life, not just to exist, but to love and to protect this family for the rest of his days.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến cho mọi người những video tiếp theo về những câu chuyện tình yêu của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca, Lý Tử Diệp và cả Lý Tử Na nữa. Thì thường kênh mình sẽ lên nhiều nội dung và mình hy vọng rằng các nội dung ở trên kênh mình sẽ được mọi người ủng hộ. Bởi vì do là cái thời gian gần đây bận một số công việc nên mình lên video không có đều được. Còn đến khi mà thời gian ổn định lại, khoảng một vài hôm nữa ổn định lại thì mình sẽ cố gắng là nên trong vòng một ngày là 2 video và 2 khung giờ cố định vào 7 giờ sáng và 7 giờ tối. Mình hy vọng rằng mọi người có thể theo dõi và ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn để kênh mình ngày càng có thể phát triển hơn. Cũng như đây là động lực rất lớn để mình cũng có thể cố gắng để đem lại cho mọi người những video hay và ý nghĩa hơn. Và mong rằng vẫn có thể gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Chào tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video sau.